Hello there, guys. I couldn't resist this one. It's on bullet trains. I thought I should just do one video on bullet trains. A lot of us, there's been a lot of debate since Chamisa, MDC-T president and alliance candidate, since he announced he talked about the possibility of improving our transport, our rail transport network by introducing probably a bullet train between Bulawayo and Harare. And I think he quoted something like half an hour, 30 minutes. But obviously, it's a rally, so a bit of exaggeration, playing to the gallery, it happens. But I think a lot of people have been putting some serious thought. Some have dismissed it as it's just electioneering. It's a wild dream. But I've got a few questions here, which I think we can go through and try to answer them. And if there are more questions, just ask them. If you want to help me to answer these, you can also do that. So, is it affordable? So that's the first thing. A lot of people did their research. We have Google these days, as soon as you say something, people go online, they'll find out exactly the cost of a project. And some figures have been quoted, and today a figure of something like 45 billion was quoted by someone. But I can also tell you one figure which I quoted today, which is the initial public offering for Spotify, which is a music streaming application on Android and on iOS. It's valued at around, the company is now valued at about 30 billion because of that. The initial IPO, initial public offering, IPO, the initial public offering, which is 30 billion for this company. Hello, Mary. We're talking about bullet trains, a very unpopular subject with those people who don't think it's possible. So I'm just asking a few questions, and the first one that I've asked is it affordable? And some figures have been quoted. So, and a lot of people have expressed skepticism because it's too expensive. The national budget for Zimbabwe, the last I had was less than 5 billion. So you can't even talk of a project which is worth more than that. Okay, but what people fail to appreciate or choose to ignore is that some of these projects can actually be they can be run by investors, which means investors can come in and investors can fund the whole project, because if they find it viable, they do a feasibility study, they find it viable, they like it, they can go ahead and implement the project, even in a country like Zimbabwe with a very small budget. So they can do that as long as they gain something from it. And one of my friends actually suggested that instead of just making it a Harare-Bulawayo bullet train, if you could expand it to Johannesburg, because there are a lot of people who go to Johannesburg from probably even people from Zambia will be coming into Zimbabwe to get the bullet train. So they could get it, Zambian people could come in, they could get it, go to Johannesburg, and Johannesburg would be doing the same. It could even run all the way to Tanzania and go all the way up. Why not? Imagine if SADC, you could travel and be in a different country within, say, 2-3 hours, do your business and go home on a bullet train. So one of the problems, though, that I foresee with such is that would really need to protect that railway line because of animals like elephants, because if there was an elephant on the way and that thing is moving fast at more than 200 miles per hour, it could be a real disaster. So that's one of the things that probably, but in terms of affordability, some of these projects, it's not up to a government to fund it, but it's up to a government to mobilize the resources from elsewhere. So they can mobilize these resources from somewhere else, and then these people can come in, investors can come in, they can launch the bullet train. Not a problem at all. So in terms of affordability, don't just think about Zimbabwe, the government, being able to afford or not, but it can be done by somebody else. Is it a priority? I think people are going about this the wrong way, because what actually happened is that on the day, Chamisa made a number of commitments, and one of the commitments was, why not, let's dream bigger, why not have a bullet train? And so the idea of the bullet train overshadowed, that's what people picked up. It overshadowed everything else he talked about. He talked about building dams. He talked about improving the road network, the roads. He talked about other forms of transport. So it wasn't just about bullet trains. But the rally then seemed to be just about bullet trains, and it's just the bullet trains that people were talking about. And even up to now, they are talking about it. So even up to now, I'm talking about it. So whether it's it's not a priority in terms of what other stuff we need, but there is no reason why it cannot run concurrently. There is no reason why it cannot be a long-term project, because some projects can take 2, 3, 4 years, but some projects could be for the next 10, 15, 20-year projects. And I think that's one of the things that we fail to do. We don't have long-term plans as a country. We don't even know what we want in the next 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 years. We don't know that because we don't talk about it. So is it a priority? Well, it's not. It cannot be a priority in terms of overriding things like making sure that there is adequate food security, making sure that we have enough buses, making sure that we have enough, we've sorted the roads first, making sure that we've sorted a lot of all the other problems which you have, the potholes on the roads. So it cannot be a priority in terms of that. But it could be a priority for the next 50 years or so. Okay? So we cannot just say, oh, it's not a priority. And one of the things as well is that a government is able to allocate teams which can work on different projects. And this one could be a long-term project. It might not even get started in the next 10 years, but certainly, so instead of a bullet train, we still need a faster train than what we currently have. Come on. Then is it cost effective? Well, the cost effectiveness would depend on the people who are running the project, if we get investors to run the project. So it will be cost effective to them, but it will also be increase trade between, because they are goods and we've got accidents, guys. We've got buses coming from South Africa and who are having accidents. Imagine if there was a bullet train and all these goods being carried, because it's not just people. This bullet train will be carrying goods as well. So that's something that we should think about. So it will be cost effective for the economy, because the economy stands to benefit. One of the problems that we have is we have poor road networks, poor transport networks. We also have poor energy generation. Okay, and can you imagine that Zimbabwe even sometimes Sometimes Zimbabwe would generate electricity and sell it to a neighboring country, and have power cuts in our own country because we're selling electricity to another country. How do you develop? How do you grow an economy without energy? Okay, so is it just a wild dream? Well, if you think about countries which are sending spaceships or space rockets, or the rover mission, the Curiosity rover mission on Mars, we've got this Mars rover on Mars right now. India is one of those countries which has challenges, just like America has some challenges. Although America has NASA and all that, there's a lot of money there, but they also have challenges in their community, socioeconomic problems. India, despite all the problems that they have, India also has a space program. Because here's what happens. It's like this Formula One thing. Formula One is actually the test bed for future innovation in the car industry. Okay, so the money that they are investing in Formula One is not only helping to provide entertainment, but it's also a test bed for what is possible in the car industry. And most of the technologies which are being developed for Formula One end up being in the cars that we use on a daily basis, in commercial vehicles. Okay, so having such a dream is not wild, because it's going to help with the imagination of the country. It's going to create jobs, and those jobs are going to feed families. Those families, the people employed, will be able to pay taxes to the government. Okay, so as we think it's a big dream for some of you, just think about a spacecraft called Voyager, which has just left the solar system. I think this week it just left the solar system. It's been traveling for years, I think over 30, 40, 50 years. I'll have to check the date. But, these are projects taking place. So we don't have enough industrial activity. We don't have enough research and development. If you look at the phone I'm using now, this particular phone is actually, I like to call it a technological Frankenstein. It's a collection of technologies which were just developed separately or at different times. Some of them by DARPA, the research department of the American government, where we get technologies like the internet coming from there, the GPS coming from there, mostly for military purposes, but later on they roll them out to you and me. So this phone, if you look at it, Steve Jobs, all he did was he managed to what he did was that he managed to, let me see if this person wants to come in. Let's see. Just to tag. Okay. So what I can't remember what I was saying now. So I was talking about the solar system, the Voyager having left the solar system. I was talking about Steve Jobs and the fact that Steve Jobs was able to take different technologies which were already in existence and put them into a single device and call it the iPhone. So he was able to do that. Why was he able to do that? Because the government of America was actively encouraging research and development, and even funding some of it. And so what then happens is that if government is actively involved, then companies can take advantage of that technology. But we live in the age of abundance, which means basically you can You can come up with your own design for a vehicle, for example, and have it manufactured in China. Okay, you can have it manufactured anywhere. You can talk to VW or BMW or Mercedes, and you can use their engine. You can talk to Nissan, and you can use their engine for your car, and you can basically have your own car right now. Okay, Blessed is watching. Okay, so yeah, so I think I've just come to the end of this, unless if there are any questions, which I can just answer now. But I've been talking about bullet trains, whether it's affordable, or where I said, well, if an investor comes in and they're interested in the project, it's viable, it's going to make them money, somebody could take it up, because what does government has mobilization capacity, which means government can mobilize resources, they can mobilize funds, but they don't necessarily need to have their own funds, which is why ED is in China right now, is trying to mobilize for investments to come in. That's what he's doing. Okay, although obviously he's not looking inward as much as he should, because we've got a lot of potential in the country. We've got educated people in the country, so we've got human capital. But I don't think that he's exploiting that as much as he should. I think he's rushing to go outside the country to bring people in. But those people don't just come in; they come in with their own conditions. They want something from us. So I think he's in a desperate position because he wants to quickly impress. He's got an election in less than 3 months coming. So he wants to quickly impress. He wants to stay on in power. He's going to be negotiating from a position of weakness because he's desperate. He's desperate. He wants to see things improving. So that's a problem already that I see with the current government. And then I talked about priority, and I said, well, you don't really, Patrick, you don't really need, priority. I think what the people missed on the speech when Chamisa made this announcement was that he mentioned a lot of other things, okay? But those things were simply forgotten because this bullet train just caught the attention of some people. And some people didn't even know there was a bullet train and then just a fast train. And they started looking at this and said, oh, maybe a fast train would be better than a bullet train because it's a lower speed, but it's more affordable. So looking at affordability. But in terms of priorities, because he talked about all these other things, and people simply chose to ignore the other stuff because the bullet train is what caught their attention, and the bullet train is what we're still talking about. So I think that where the problem was, then, is it cost effective? Well, it depends on the investor and what they want on their own. If they've done their own feasibility study, they've figured out whether it's cost effective for them or not. But obviously, for the region, if this train was to run from all the way from Zambia and into South Africa, because you could do this as a joint, you could say, guys, let's do this as a joint project, so that the train is running all the way from Zambia or even Tanzania, from Magufuli Land all the way to Johannesburg. That will be very cost effective. That will bring the countries together. That will be quite a feat. Nikai Tapelo Vajava. I can't remember now. Tapelo. Sisutu. Right. Then, is it just a wild dream? Well, some countries are going to Mars. Some countries, there's a Voyager spacecraft which has just left the solar system. Okay, so some countries are doing that. And then we're thinking it's too big a dream. Well, it's not too big a dream. I think it's achievable. But it all depends on our priorities at the time. It doesn't have to be a short-term project. It doesn't have to be done within the first 100 days. It could be done within the first 100 years. Okay, we could 50 years down the line, 20 years, but it's important that we're thinking about this, because imagination is very important, especially for the younger generation. Okay, the younger generation would like to be inspired. When John F. Kennedy, was it Kennedy or one of the presidents in America, made the announcement that they'll put a man on the moon, they eventually did. They put a man on the moon. Okay, 1969. Right, I've come to the end, guys. I'll be back tomorrow. I'll probably talk about buses. I had a really long argument today with some of my friends on whether it should be news that we have landed a bus deal. You know, in this day and age, we're celebrating a bus deal. It just didn't make. It just to me, it just looked like we're so far behind. We're even going to celebrate the Kaisero Boho. We're going to celebrate that in town, because it just didn't bode well for me. I thought, why should, in this day and age, why should we be celebrating such things when, you know, it should be normal? And besides, these announcements have been made for years now, so it's not the first time we've had such deals have been concluded. And so for 40 years, all these announcements have been made, but look where we are. Okay, guys, thank you for watching. I'll see you again in tomorrow's video.